A tale as old as time, an arsenal of flashlights, and the Tooth Fairy. All this and more on Scarifyer.
Scarifyer.
Hello, you horror junkies, and welcome to Scarifyer. I'm your host, the Gov.
And I'm Quinn. And before we dive into our episode today, I wanted to bring your guys' attention to our Facebook page. Head on over there, submit a photo or whatever, comment, and check out our content over there. Get in touch with us. We want to hear from you.
All right, and how are you doing today, Quinn?
I am doing fabulous. And yourself?
My teeth hurt.
Oh, of course I do.
Because evil rises and darkness falls. On this episode of Scarifyer, we're talking about 2003's Darkness Fall, and I'm really looking forward to it. I mean,
I'll bet you are.
Really looking forward to it. But before we get into that, of course, we got to head over to that Scarifyer news desk for your news today. As always, our news segment starts at the beginning of the week, so if we missed anything that happened later in the week, our apologies. But our news comes from bloodydisgusting.com this week. And first article, Halloween Ends is officially entering production with the first behind-the-scenes still of one Jamie Lee Curtis, Andy Matichak, and Kyle Richards, of course, returning to their characters from the previous installments.
It's going to be good.
Is it?
I think so.
I was a little let down by Halloween Kills, but that's for another episode. This one's interesting. John Larroquette is back to narrate the new sequel that is, of course, Netflix's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He had the famous narrating voice in the original Tobe Hooper 1973 film, so he is back to narrate this, I guess, third version of the real sequel. I don't know.
But I like the fact that they got him back for it. I love John Larroquette, so
that's cool. I'll
too.
admit that is really cool.
Yeah.
But I don't know, when I'm hearing about this production and the recasting of Sally Hardesty,
we'll have to see how it goes.
I don't know. And our final news topic is, of course, happy birthday to Joe Bob Briggs.
Yay!
He is celebrating a birthday on January 27th. And of course, he is someone we follow on this show. And like I'm sure a lot of you out there, he's the whole reason why we're in this industry. Mm-hmm. So happy birthday.
Very happy birthday.
To Joe Bob Briggs.
Scarifyer has partnered with Notoriously Morbid. Notoriously Morbid has everything you need to get your horror fix, including collectibles, apparel, and more. Their cosmetics line includes beautiful chromes, mesmerizing lipsticks, all in stunning shades. Head over to Notoriously Morbid and enter Scarifyer10 at checkout for your 10% discount.
All right, our main discussion for Scarifyer tonight, the supernatural horror film Darkness Falls, starring Cheney Clay and Buffy alumni Emma Caulfield, directed by Jonathan Liebsman. It was released January 24th, 2003, and oh my God. This is probably one of the dumbest movies I have seen in quite a few years.
I don't think it's dumb.
I think it was terrible.
I don't think it's dumb. I think it's good for simplistic reasons. I don't think it's the greatest movie ever made.
Well, that's for sure.
But I do think that it is a good background noise.
So a movie you can ignore. It's a good movie you could.
Well, no, what I'm saying, it's a good movie where it's simple to follow. It's not overly complicated. It's not trying to be too smart for the audience. Which is something.
I agree with that. It's not trying to be smart at all. You nailed it on the head with that one.
I'm just saying that it's a nice, simple film.
This movie,
that's something that I like. I don't like it when they try to make movies too complicated or they try to outsmart the audience. Then it just gets muddy. This is a straightforward film. It's not overly gory either. So I also think this would be a good film to slowly introduce people into horror.
See, I disagree with that. I would not introduce somebody into the world of horror with this film because I would want them to stay there.
Well, no, I'm not saying this is the very first film that I would go to, but again, it's not gory. There's not a lot of jump scares. So
it's not a scary movie.
Well, I mean,
this movie tells the story of this cursed being who is stalking the small town of Darkness Falls because of an unholy crime committed against her when she was alive over 150 years ago. And that, of course, is the legend of the Tooth Fairy. Yes, this is the Tooth Fairy horror film. If you didn't know it by the trailers, even though they tell you in the trailer, like, it's almost like a warning, get ready, this is really stupid. But they full out blatantly tell you this in the opening where they tell the legend of probably the most generic witch name you could possibly think of, like a Google generator witch name, Matilda. And she was accused for a crime she did not commit, so the townspeople of Darkness Falls burned her alive, and she cursed the town, hunting for children's teeth. But if you see her, she has the right to kill you. Am I getting this right?
Yeah, but see, it's straightforward. It's not hard to follow.
I didn't say it was complicated. That's hence why me saying this is one of the stupidest films I've ever seen. It is certainly not complicated. You don't have to think. You can turn your brain off. Absolutely.
No, but the thing about it is, again, it is one of the simple films that I enjoy because I think the premise is really good. I think the idea is great. I think that the execution could have been a little bit better. I'll give you that because I don't believe in a perfect film. There is no such thing as a perfect film.
Well, I agree with you on that. Absolutely.
But I don't know. There's just something charming about the movie to me. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's something unique about it. There's something different because, like, the whole idea of a creature who has to stay in darkness and you have to avoid it. You have to stay in the light, as they famously say multiple times throughout the film.
That's the whole idea of the film, is you have to stay safe, to escape the Tooth Fairy. It's the Tooth Fairy. You keep looking at me and rolling your eyes. It's the Tooth Fairy, and it's not like a stretch. You don't have to put two and two together, solve the riddle. They flat out tell you it's the fucking Tooth Fairy. I was curious why Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson didn't star in this film.
It's not awful. I think that it gets a very bad rep, and I don't think that it deserves it.
I do. I absolutely do.
I really don't.
Okay, here, I'll play devil's advocate for just a minute. So it's not the whole show me just ragging on this film, which is going to be so easy for me to do. The ideas that are presented in this film aren't all bad. As you said, the idea of staying in the light, and you if you see her, that's putting a target on your chest, essentially. Yeah. She will kill you.
It's kind of like a Quiet Place, but with sight.
A little bit. And the whole concept of staying in the light, out of the dark, in the being only appears in the dark, would be perfected in Lights Out, the short, not the feature length.
Right, but again...
So there are good ideas, and everybody loves a good folklore, especially in the early 2000s, like this was, a good folklore horror film.
But think about it. The Tooth Fairy is something very...
Innocent.
I
think that was the idea.
Something from, something that children adore and stuff like that. And how terrifying would it be if your, quote, happy folklore wasn't happy?
No, and
what happens if it was absolutely terrifying?
And I think that was the idea. But and the funny thing is, though, this happened in 2003, where something like that was a pure staple of the 80s slashers. Who can we make dangerous? We can make Santa dangerous. We can make the Sandman dangerous. So
are you saying that it's like 20 years too late?
No, I just feel like it's a little bit of an old concept that they tried to make new again. Modern
type idea.
Like, killer. It's almost like you joke about it. Oh yeah, did you see the killer Easter Bunny one, the killer Snowman one, the killer Tooth Fairy one? and it's not a slasher. It doesn't follow that at all.
No.
I'm just saying
really
that just the concept.
It's not even really violent.
No, it's not. It's a very soft PG-13 movie, which I think is another.
You think it hurt it?
It absolutely hurts it. Okay, so if you're going to go with this weird, goofy-ass concept, even though you're going to try to, embed it in folklore and stuff like that. And by the way, when I first saw this film, I rented it on DVD. And in the special features, there's like a making of. And the production team are so proud of this concept. They act like they discovered gold by saying, we're going to do the Tooth Fairy. Isn't that terrifying? And I'm like, no, it's not.
Why wouldn't it be? Well, let me back up for a second. Let me stop for a second. If you took the Tooth Fairy aspect out of it, what would you think of the film then?
It's bland.
You just think that it's a vanilla film.
It's so bland. The acting in it is absolutely wooden.
I will say it does a little bit stiff.
Yeah, no.
With the acting, almost like people are on autopilot a little bit. I'll give it that.
Every character in this is a wet mop. And they don't do anything. You got the lead character of Kyle Walsh, who saw the
You can't even keep a straight face.
I can't. So the movie centers around this character, Kyle Walsh, in modern times. And when he was a kid, he lost his final baby tooth at the ripe old age of 14.
Oh my God.
Because they cast a young actor who his like voice had already dropped. He's already like starting puberty and stuff like that. I'm like, wait a minute, this is the kid who just lost his last baby tooth? I don't know about anyone else out there. I lost mine at like the latest 11.
Okay, I didn't say it was a perfect film.
But and that's when she comes. She comes when you lose your last baby tooth, Matilda. And he puts it under the pillow. He thinks he's going to get a coin or whatever and stuff like that. And he accidentally sees her. And more so importantly, so does his mother. He gets away, she gets the mother, and he is labeled as like the kid who killed his mom because obviously you can't explain that it was the Tooth Fairy.
Well, it's not like a dog ate my homework.
Exactly. Well, without people looking at you, kind of funny.
Yeah.
So it jumps to adult years, and it's him and his childhood girlfriend, or could have been girlfriend. She just so happens to have a brother. By the way, parents nowhere to be seen, but she happens to have a brother who's having the same issue. He's seen the Tooth Fairy. He's on his last tooth. This kid is of age, which I'm like, okay, at least they redeemed themselves. The kid who plays Michael is of age, and Kyle Walsh comes back to save him, and because he knows he's the only one who believes him that the Tooth Fairy is real. Weak. It's weak. It's absolutely weak. If you take the Tooth Fairy thing out of it, that's almost taking away the slight thing that makes it kind of worth talking about, just because of how absurd it is.
I don't think it's that absurd, though. I mean, I understand like the whole Tooth Fairy thing is kind of weird. I understand that, but again, it goes back to that whole: what happens if you take something sacred and innocent? What happens if it was evil?
Yeah, I know. I understand what they're trying to do. And they may, you know what? It's almost like I wish this movie would have proved me wrong a little bit more. I almost wish it was a good movie that was well-rounded, well-acted, had good jump scares, because it had zero good jump scares in this. I did not. The one time I jumped was not the fucking Tooth Fairy. It was a cat jumping on the hood of a car. That was the only thing that got me. It was a fake out scare.
I will ask you about the police scene. The police department scene. I thought it was actually a very genius move that they have her purposefully scaring people to get them to shoot out the lights.
To take out the lights so she can move around freely.
Yeah, exactly. She can move around. She can get closer to people.
Again, like I said, there are ideas that could work. Maybe if the execution was done properly, it might have worked. You could have taken this, as you keep saying, innocent concept and make it scary and entertaining.
So you're telling me if they redid it and they left the Tooth Fairy thing in, you'd be okay if they executed it better.
Yeah, because
You keep repeating the Tooth Fairy,
because it's so silly, it's so bonkers to me that they even tried to make this a thing.
They've done it with Santa Claus. They've done it with the Easter Bunny. They did a Killer Turkey movie.
Yeah, but those were all more satirical. These were more parodies. I mean, maybe not some of the Santa Claus ones, because for a while, especially in the 80s, they really tried to make Santa scary. Mm-hmm. But if you look at like one of the more recent ones, like Santa's Sleigh or Krampus, or Thanksgiving, what you're referring to, Jack Frost, they're all more parody. Yes, they're slashers, but they're parody. Darkness Falls is stone cold serious. It takes itself very, very seriously.
Maybe it's because I like simple movies for the most part. I don't want an overcomplicated storyline. I don't want to have to pause and wait. I'm confused. Let me go back. Let me figure this out and follow the string to get back to where I need to be. I like my movies straightforward. I really do.
What kills it is some of the executions for a movie that doesn't really do anything in terms of like they don't really tell you anything. It doesn't really progress.
Because it's not important.
But it takes so long to get to the point. It's almost like it contradicts itself. It doesn't have anything to say, and then it takes forever to get there.
But the other thing about
it's almost like it's chuffa just to get to its sizzle, no steak. That's the best way I could describe this movie.
But the other part of this movie that I feel like is appreciated now that was not appreciated then is the fact that they talk about PTSD. They talk about depression, night terrors.
Okay.
Childhood trauma and fear. Mm-hmm. And that is something that really wasn't discussed back then. But now we can appreciate it. And that movie talked about it at a time where you knew about it, but it wasn't really discussed.
Right.
And I think that is a very powerful thing because you watch him struggle with flashbacks and trauma and depression, medication. And I think it can be appreciated now.
The acting in it, the acting in it hurts it. As we keep saying, all the characters, besides the main ones, I don't know another character's name. No one really left an impact on me. No one really stood out. The main character of Kyle Walsh, played by Chaney Clay, and R.I.P. He died very young, actually not too long after this movie. Mm-hmm. You can argue maybe it's his character because he's
supposed to be sleep deprived.
He's obviously sleep deprived. He's messed up in his head for what he's
been through.
He's self-medicating, so him being kind of out of it almost makes sense. Yeah. But other times when he's trying to bounce back to life and he's trying to be kind of like the third act action star, the one who's going to save us all, he still acted very stale, very wooden. Emma Caulfield, she was just the girl. She was the girl. She was there to be the girl. And that's what really hurts it for me. It's like you can take an obscure idea, and then you have a lot of really good ideas around it. Everything you've said this episode, Quinn, are good ideas, and I'm sitting here saying, like, why didn't we get that movie then?
I will say, I did think that they redeemed themselves a little bit through the comic book.
Yes. You want to tell them about that?
The comic book is supposed to take place, and it goes over, like, Matilda's life leading up to the events.
It was a Dark Horse movie tie-in, right?
Yes.
So it came out around the time the movie came out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was, like, her backstory, because, I mean, think about it. It doesn't make sense. Why would they assume right off the get-go that she's the one that took the kids? Why would she be so mad at the town?
Yeah.
I
assumed it was typical old crone. It's got to be her because she's a witch.
No, it explains it in the comic book.
Okay.
It discovers her backstory, who she was, things that happened to her, and things like that. Mm-hmm. I almost feel like that would be a good. I don't know if like reboot is the right word I'm looking for. Or
it would be.
Or if they were going to like redo this movie,
it would be like a revisit.
We would need a chunk of that backstory of this character to understand her a little bit better, to give that explanation like that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, now is when we have more explanation. Back in 2003, we didn't really have that a ton. it was mostly like pull the trigger, shoot, go. That was the style.
Sure.
So you can't fault the movie for that, because that was very popular at the time.
Yeah.
Now, granted, some movies were more clever at like wedging in a little bit of explanation here and there, but not all of them did it. So you can't fault the movie for that. So,
well, I mean, solid. So maybe if this is something to revisit, I mean, in a world where literally everything's getting reboot, or as in our last show, a requel.
if they can do it in a smart way, like I said, in a way that would be adapted to make sense of things in a way that is good at explaining the whole entire story, because I feel like there was a chunk of story missing from the film. Like, there's a story in there, but we just don't get to see it.
Which also begs the question of, does she visit every other kid's home?
No.
So it's literally just this town.
Yeah, because it even says in the opening, she places a curse upon Darkness Falls.
Yeah, but does she...
She's mad at the town.
But does she tooth fairy everywhere else? Like, am I safe if
No.
I knocked a tooth out? So she wouldn't come back to me?
No.
So rip off. So I don't get my gold coin.
Well, what happens if there's... I don't know the whole...
What makes
legendary
Darkness Falls so special?
folklore.
I would think that if she's mad at Darkness Falls, then yeah, I'm going to kill you guys. But everyone else, hey, here's a coin. You were good.
No, because she was specifically the witch of Darkness Falls. She was giving the kids the coins when she was alive in Darkness Falls. She didn't bounce around from place to place to place to place.
So she's not like Santa Claus
No.
where she is
No.
universally...
It's like a town ghost.
That just happens to be the Tooth Fairy.
That's what she.
So the
That's
legend-
what she did for children when she was alive.
So the legend...
Bring me your baby tooth, and I'll give you like a coin.
The legend of the Tooth Fairy is based on her that somebody else took and made her into this, mythical creature that kids believe in everywhere else. But in this particular town, she's actually real, and she's a malevolent, cursed witch.
I am assuming so.
There's a lot of things you could do with this.
Well, see, but that's what I'm saying. The movie has so much that you can do with that.
But at the same time, it goes to what I was saying. The movie doesn't tell it right. It doesn't tell its own story correctly.
Well,
it leaves more questions than answers.
Well, then somebody needs to pick it up and reboot it.
Well, the film was a success in terms of box office. Don't get ahead of me. Opened in the number one spot when it was released, and it made $47.5 million on an $11 million budget. However,
I didn't know the budget was that low.
Yeah, it's not. Well, you could kind of tell.
Oh my God, that's not what I meant.
Yeah. However, according to Rotten Tomatoes, 9% of the critics out of 129 reviews gave it a positive. That's bad. It's a percentage. 9% say it's good. Others say it's bad out of 129 reviews.
Okay, so people wanted to see it. Critics hated it, though.
So it's
well, then that's...
and a lot of fans hated it. It has a average rating of 3.2 out of 10, with critical consensus saying a derivative movie where the scares are few and far between and makes no sense.
It's because it was a PG-13 film.
I mean, regardless, I've seen plenty of really scary PG-13 films.
Like what?
That's not why we're here. All right, so with that being said, there's really not much else I can think of but give it its rating. I will go first.
All right.
Because this is not going to surprise anybody. In terms of Darkness Falls, I'm going to give it probably a 1.5.
Oh, that's mean.
It's a 1.5. I was not entertained by it. If anything, it's more frustrating because it is a missed opportunity. I'm not saying that a legend of the Tooth Fairy in this sort of context couldn't work. It probably could work because that at least is something that you are intrigued by. Mm-hmm. The jump scares are nothing. The acting is terrible. The gore is non-existent. It's a PG-13 movie. However, the character itself, Matilda, as this ghost, looks like the Phantom of the Megaplex. It's the most generic looking thing you could possibly think of. A white porcelain mask with a black shrouded robe. Come on, try to get more creative with this, people. I know it was 2003, but still. The movie was directed by Jonathan Liebsman, who has a pretty polarizing career. And it's not to saying that he's an incompetent director, but his resume is Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning, Wrath of the Titans, Battle Los Angeles, and of course Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 2014 Michael Bay version. You know, this movie has...
I have nothing to say to that.
This movie has a lot going against it, and the Gov's review is one of them. 1.5. I didn't like it.
I'm going to go ahead and give it a 2.
That is not anywhere near what I thought you were going to give it. I thought I was at least going to get a 3 out of you, because you've spent a lot of time defending it.
No, because the thing is, I really don't have... I'm going to be honest. I really don't have a good argument for this one. I just think that it's a fun movie.
It's still really low.
It's okay, fine. A 2.5.
No. That means you're on.
Does that appease you?
No, it doesn't, because I should shut up.
Does that appease you? Yeah, because I didn't interrupt you. You want to keep going?
I really should shut up, because that means you would be on Team Gov. Go ahead. 2.
2.5.
Oh, whatever.
Because, I mean, yes, it does have its flaws, as you admitted, but again, it is a fun movie. It's not something that I would flock to. It's not something that I have to watch like every year as a tradition. It's good as every once in a while, but when I do watch it, it's enjoyable. The things that are going against it, obviously, as we have already gone over, the acting is very wooden. It's very stiff. I almost feel like it is emotionless at times. Mm-hmm. There's nothing really there, almost like everyone's dead on the inside.
Sure.
But again, I think that the concept really is something. And it's not something that has been done over and over and over again. For example, like Santa Claus.
That's for damn sure.
Oh
Absolutely.
My God. I'm talking about originality, because this really can be a terrifying concept. And it's not something that everybody does. And it's not overly produced. And that is something that I do respect for it, is the original idea. And the fact that they have built this evil folklore out of something that is supposed to be innocent. And I do respect it for that. So yeah, 2.5.
Well, I mean, I've only seen the movie twice in my life. When it first came out, I rented it on DVD. And I watched it for this review. And I have zero intention of returning to it. But Quinn is much more supportive of it than I can be, because for this movie about a killer tooth fairy, it's something I couldn't sink my teeth into.
We feel now is the best time to tell you that Scarifyer is a proud supporter of Rue Morgue. Rue Morgue is the world's leading horror and culture and entertainment brand, spearheaded by its multiple award-winning magazine, Rue Morgue and Rue Morgue Digital. But if reading is not your thing, that's okay, because Rue Morgue TV, the official YouTube channel, as well as Rue Morgue Cinema, which produced the acclaimed original film, The Last Will and Testament of Rosalind Lee. So head over to ruemorgue.com and subscribe to Rue Morgue Magazine for your bi-monthly slice of horror, culture, and entertainment today.
And that'll do it for this episode of Scarifyer. Don't take our word for it. Head out yourself and check out Darkness Falls if you really want to. But that's just our take.
All right, guys. If you have a review or an opinion about Darkness Falls or any other flick for that matter, head on over to our Facebook page. Comment, like, follow us. Let us know what you think about this flick, okay?
And as always, we'll see you next time on Scarifyer.
Scarifyer.